What if I told you that before your body even existed, you were already known, that before time itself began, you were already dreamed of, that your soul lived in a realm where matter had not yet been formed? The Bible whispers secrets that the modern world has forgotten. Today, we will go beyond the visible and step into the invisible. We will uncover what God wrote about you before the beginning. In the very beginning, there was no light, no stars, no clocks. The universe had not yet breathed. Silence was not emptiness. It was the only voice that echoed. But in that abyss before creation, when nothing could yet be seen, there pulsed the thought of an eternal God. It was not a vague idea, but a living will, detailed, loving, intentional. In that unreachable and unfathomable place, where even centuries had not yet been counted, you were already present. Not your body, but the essence of your soul. The book of Genesis does not begin with light. It begins with a declaration. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. But that beginning was not the ultimate beginning. It was simply the beginning of the visible. Before matter, there was spirit. Before the tangible, there was the eternal. And in that eternal dimension, your existence was already included in the thoughts of God. This means your birth was not the start of your story. You are not a biological accident, nor the product of random genetics. Your soul is the expression of something much older. The Apostle Paul, in Ephesians chapter 1, declares that we were chosen before the foundation of the world. That means that before cosmic dust swirled, before the first star shone, your soul was already seen, known, and desired. Not as a nameless being among billions, but as a unique identity written into the narrative of eternity. This reveals something powerful. You did not begin when you were born. You were longed for before the cosmos existed, before mountains were raised, before the sun warmed the earth. Your existence was already echoing in God's eternal plan. God did not begin acting at creation, and He always was, and everything He desires exists outside of time. That is why the soul does not belong to the calendar. It carries a seal that no biology can explain. Its root is eternal, its essence divine, its origin beyond time itself. This revelation changes everything. We are not the result of chance. We are not pieces randomly thrown into existence. We are the fruit of an eternal choice, carefully woven into a loving intention. When God said, "Let there be light," He already knew who would walk beneath that light. He already knew whose eyes would see the day, whose feet would walk the earth. And among all who would ever be born, He had already reserved space for you, for your soul, for your story. Understanding this transforms life. Knowing that you were dreamed of before time itself gives weight and purpose to your existence. Nothing in your story is random. The place of your birth, the family you came from, the time you live in, all were already included in God's original dream. That is why the soul never finds full satisfaction in temporary things. It carries within it a silent memory of eternity, a longing that does not cease, a thirst that no earthly success can quench, because what comes from eternity never fully adapts to the temporal. The truth is that creation did not begin with light. It began with love, a love that has no beginning and no end. The human soul is a reflection of that love. That is why it does not appear as an accident, but is released into time with purpose. The visible creation is only the stage. The real story begins in the invisible, in the heart of the Creator, who wrote names before He wrote stars. And among those names was yours, not as a rough draft, but as a finished design. You were desired, dreamed, and set apart before the foundation of the world. Every detail of who you are, your sensitivity, your choices, your virtues, even your wounds, were already seen within that eternal dream, not as an unchangeable destiny, but as a sacred possibility. The soul was contemplated before it was breathed into life. Before it was placed in the womb, it already existed in heaven. God saw every possibility of what you could become. He saw your doubts, your failures, and your redemption. And still, He chose to write you into existence. This changes how we understand value. The world measures value by appearance, by achievement, or by usefulness. But the fact that you were desired before creation itself means your value does not depend on any of those things. Your worth is found in the simple fact that you were intentionally dreamed of by God. Nothing can remove that truth. You were not invented. You were remembered. The world discovered you at birth, but God knew you before there was even a world. Psalm 139 says that all your days were written before one of them came to be. Jeremiah chapter 1 reveals that God knew and set apart the prophet even before the womb, and that truth extends to all of us. The soul does not enter the world lost, wandering for meaning. It carries a calling that precedes the body, a vocation that does not depend only on natural talents, but on a divine purpose that existed long before. This truth even echoes in the mysterious words of Job 38, when God speaks of the morning stars singing together and the sons of God rejoicing before creation. Such passages hint at a reality where the soul already existed within the consciousness of God before it ever touched matter. If this is true, then your life is proof of an eternal plan. Nothing in you was improvised. Your gifts, your passions, your wounds, your sensibilities all reflect the unique design of your soul, shaped by the Creator. And this explains the deep restlessness inside every human being. That sense of emptiness nothing seems to fill. It is not a flaw. It is homesickness. Homesickness for eternity. Homesickness for the Creator. The soul feels this longing because it has already known eternity. That is why it searches, why it calls, why it is never quiet. This echo is what drives us back to God, and even when the mind doubts, the soul insists, because it recognizes the handwriting of the Creator within itself. At the deepest level, spiritual life is not starting something new. It is remembering something ancient. It is the soul returning to its source. That is why prayer, faith, questions, even doubt, all belong to the journey. The soul does not need to learn God. It needs to remember Him. But if the soul was written and known before the body, where was it while the body was not yet formed? What happens between the moment God knows a soul and the moment it enters the womb? Perhaps there is a hidden chamber, a silent place where souls wait for the right time to descend into the world. The Bible suggests in hints and images that the human spirit comes from God and returns to Him afterward. That order itself points to an origin that predates the flesh. Zechariah declares that the Lord stretches out the heavens, lays the foundation of the earth, and forms the spirit of man within him, showing a distinction between body and spirit. Ecclesiastes reminds us that dust returns to the earth as it was, and the spirit returns to God who gave it. These words suggest a path that moves from heaven to earth and back again, pointing to a soul that exists before embodiment. Some ancient traditions even spoke of a place where souls awaited their time, a symbolic image, not doctrine, but a reflection of the mystery. The important truth is not the literal picture, but the eternal reality it expresses. If God knows and separates a soul before the womb, then there must be a realm before conception that holds it until the appointed time. Imagine a place of preparation outside of matter where time flows differently. There the soul waits, not forgotten, but preserved. God holds each soul with tenderness until the perfect moment arrives, and then at the right time He releases it, not as an emergency creation, but as an intentional sending. It enters the mother's womb as one who has received a mission. And here lies something even more mysterious. When the soul touches time, when it enters flesh, it loses full memory of that eternal place. It forgets, or rather, it is veiled. This is not punishment but purpose. If we remembered heaven too clearly, we would live this life restless and unwilling to embrace its limits. Out of love, God allows the memory to fade, enough to create longing, but not enough to cause despair. This veil creates the path of faith. That is why so many people feel, from an early age, a strange sense of absence, a sense that something is missing. This is not because something was stolen, but because the soul carries an impression of what it once knew. That emptiness is the echo of home. The psalmist said God placed eternity in the human heart. We carry eternity inside us, not around us, but within us. This hidden eternity pushes us to pray, to search, to question, to long for something beyond what the visible world can offer. The waiting, the veil, the loss of memory, all serve a divine function. They make the reunion possible. Life becomes a field where heavenly seeds are planted. Each soul is one of those seeds. It descends to earth carrying its eternal code within. Even without remembering the tree it came from, it carries the design of that origin inside itself. That is why humans seek meaning, purpose, transcendence. It is why we look to the sky and ask, why? The moment when the invisible touches the visible is sacred. Scripture describes it as the breath of God. That breath turns dust into a living being. In that instant, eternity touches time, and in that same moment, memory of the eternal is softened, not destroyed but hidden, so that we may live this earthly life by faith. This forgetting is not loss, it is gift. It allows us to live fully within the present moment while still carrying a divine purpose. It compels us to seek, to pray, to remember what was always true. Our journey is not the creation of something new, but the remembering of what always was. And so, the deepest questions of life, why we exist, where we came from, where we are going, are not just philosophy. They are the soul's own memory stirring inside us. They are the echoes of a story written long before we were born. In the end, one truth remains. You are not an accident. You were not born to fill an empty space. You were dreamed of, desired and released by the one who knew your days before they began. Every longing, every emptiness, every restlessness is an invitation to remember. The mystery of the chamber, the waiting, the veil, the breath, all reveal a God of love and purpose. A God who wrote your name before he wrote the stars. And a God who patiently calls you even now to return, to remember, and to live fully in the eternal story he has prepared for you. Soul that once existed in the mind of God, inscribed with details in the book of life, which may have dwelled in a spiritual chamber of waiting, descends into the world without any memory of what came before. Upon touching time, the soul forgets eternity. When united with the body, it loses the reference of where it came from. And this does not happen by failure or oversight. The absence of memory is part of the plan. Many have felt at some point in life the sensation of belonging elsewhere, a subtle strangeness with the world, as if something were missing. It is a spiritual nostalgia that finds no name, a feeling of displacement that cannot be explained by psychology or biology. The soul carries an echo, and this echo, even without full memory, reveals that we have been connected to the eternal. Ecclesiastes 3:11 says, God has made everything beautiful in its time. He also put eternity in the heart of man, yet he cannot fathom what God has done from the beginning to the end. This statement is powerful and delicate. Eternity has been placed inside us, not around us, but within. We are bearers of an eternal imprint. Within the human heart, we carry something that transcends time, logic, and science. Yet at the same time, we cannot comprehend it fully. Eternity inhabits us, but understanding eludes us. This is the nature of divine forgetting. It is not total nor destructive, it is pedagogical. The veil that covers eternal memories is not punishment, it is preparation. The Creator did not erase memory out of carelessness, but out of love. If we fully remembered where we came from, we would live here with disinterest, anxiety, or even despair. The earthly world would be endured only with anguish, as if we were exiles. That is why God allows us to feel eternity, but not to fully decipher it. Forgetting frames faith. It is the absence of memory that generates the need to seek, and it is in seeking that the relationship with God is built. If the soul remembered, there would be no spiritual journey, only immutable nostalgia. The veil of memory allows us to desire, search, yearn, and this yearning is what moves the soul back to the Creator. Consider life as a field where God planted seeds with identity. Each soul is a seed that came from heaven. Yet upon being cast to earth, it must break the shell, grow, flourish, without recalling precisely the tree from which it came. Still, within it remains the code of origin. Thus, even without knowing why, the soul yearns, because within it still pulses the trace of its origin. This longing has driven countless people over the centuries to seek meaning, purpose, eternity. It is what causes humans to look to the sky and ask, why? It is the same yearning that moves pilgrimages, prayers, silent tears, and even existential revolts. What unsettles us is not merely the suffering of the world, but the absence of a memory we know we once had, even without knowing how. The prophet Isaiah in 46:10 reveals a trait of the divine nature that helps us understand this process. I am God, and from the beginning I declare what is to come, and from long ago what has not yet happened. God operates in time with absolute knowledge of beginning, middle, and end, yet chooses to place us within time with limitation. He sees the entire line, but allows us to walk it step by step. This is only possible because we forget. Faith, therefore, is only true when lived in the absence of memory. To believe is to walk toward what the soul senses, even if the mind does not comprehend. Faith is the movement of the soul, recognizing an inner truth, even without external proof. It is the spiritual response to what has been forgotten, but never lost. And this truth transforms how we perceive suffering, doubt, and even inner emptiness. What seems absence may in fact be veiled presence. What seems silence may be preparation. The soul that longs for heaven is not mistaken. It is simply beneath the veil. And this veil will be lifted one day. Until then, we must walk without seeing. We must move guided not by memory, but by the call. This call is constant. It manifests in details, in moments of beauty that touch us inexplicably, in instances of prayer where we feel something beyond words. In dreams, songs, tears, and silences, the soul, even forgotten, still responds to what is its own. And what is its own is breath. For even without remembering, the soul still carries the breath of its origin. And this breath will mark the next step of this journey, the ultimate transition, the instant when the eternal takes on flesh and time. The precise moment when the soul touches the body and what was once spirit becomes living soul, the mystery of the first breath. Before continuing, if this content has blessed your life, like, comment, and share. Subscribe to the channel, and if you wish to support it, click the thank you button and leave a contribution of any value or become a member. This allows continued investment in research and improvements to further bless your life. Continuing, there is a silent instant, invisible to human eyes, when heaven touches matter. It is the moment when the soul, dreamed before the foundation of the world, written in God's eternal thought, preserved in the invisible, and covered by a veil of forgetting, is finally released to enter time. This moment is more than biological, more than gestational. It is an encounter between dimensions. When the eternal bends over the temporary, when the immaterial anchors to the material, when the soul touches the body. Genesis 2.7 depicts a scene that transcends Adam's creation. It is a theological key to understanding the birth of every living soul. Then the Lord God formed man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. The text does not claim that man was created alive. It affirms he was formed from dust and only then received the divine breath. The body without the spirit was merely form, structure, not existence. Life only occurs when the Creator's breath enters what has been molded. Here lies the mystery. This principle repeats generation after generation. Biological formation is only a vessel. True existence happens the moment God breathes the soul into that developing body. It is not an automated mechanical process. It is a direct act of creation. Every time a soul enters the womb, there is a new breath, a new "let there be life," a new activation of the eternal plan. This truth radically changes how we view the beginning of life. It is not merely genetic combination, nor the result of reproductive biology. It is a spiritual act, a silent miracle. The body may form naturally, but the soul only enters by divine decision. It is not bound to the flesh by chance. It is placed with purpose. Every birth, therefore, testifies that heaven continues to breathe upon the earth. Upon entering the body, the soul does not lose its eternal essence, but begins to experience the limitations of time. It leaves the absolute plane and submits to the variables of human existence. This has profound implications. The soul, once contemplating the invisible, now finds itself surrounded by flesh, hormones, desires, and fragility. It must learn to exist in a space that is not its natural habitat. This clash between the eternal and the temporary gives life its complexity. For the soul, even incarnate, still carries traces of heaven. It still remembers, even without remembering. It still desires what it cannot see. And this generates tensions, inner conflicts, spiritual struggles. The soul knows it is far from home, but does not know exactly how to return. Therefore, the earthly journey becomes a constant search for meaning, redemption, and reconnection. Psalm 139 describes this mystery with poetry and precision. You formed my inward parts. You knitted me together in my mother's womb. Your eyes saw my unformed substance, and in your book all were written, the days that were ordained for me, when as yet there were none of them. Here the text does more than describe physical formation. It reveals a divine choreography. The moment the spirit intertwines with the body, breath with tissue, eternity with time. And in that breath, identity is activated. The soul is not a blank page. It carries tendencies, gifts, and spiritual marks determined before birth. Therefore, some children display sensitivity, compassion, wisdom, or inner turmoil early on, because the soul residing there already existed, was known, was called. Yet this calling begins only when the soul awakens. This awakening is not automatic. Human life is like a veil gradually torn. Spiritual consciousness develops, matures, and slowly begins to hear what has always been there. For since the first breath, God continues speaking to the soul. Even those who deny faith, resist the divine, feel something unexplainable. It is as if an inner voice persists, a sense of something beyond, a restlessness no human pleasure can silence. This is not a flaw. It is God's breath still echoing. The soul, even in silence, responds to the breath that formed it. And this breath is more than life. It is presence. The soul is not merely energy, it carries God's presence. It bears the Creator's signature. Therefore, it cannot be fully satisfied by anything other than God Himself. Every human attempt to fill this space with success, money, pleasure, or knowledge ends in frustration. For the soul was created for something greater, eternal, beyond the body it inhabits. And just as there was a precise moment for the first breath, there will also be a moment for the last sigh. the cycle closes, yet between the first and last breath. The soul has a mission to remember what it forgot, find its way back, and fulfill its purpose. In this mission lies a sacred drama, for while walking, the soul carries within it an inexplicable longing, a sense of exile. And this feeling, so real and silent, holds the key to the next mystery. For if the soul was breathed from above, why does it live with such insatiable thirst? What is this inner hunger that never ceases? What are we truly trying to remember? For our soul longs for heaven.